really seriously get hurt here. And not one person would care. Not one person would care.
April Snyder worked at Rivian, the electric truck startup backed by Amazon, from June until mid-January.
I had a couple guys behind me. There was 3 of them. They were blatantly talking about me, about my thigh gap. I was walking into the building. They were talking about my thigh gap and something about tasting the ocean, and they were all joking around and laughing about it like it was just some big joke.
April says that harassment is systemic at Rivian, and oftentimes downright shocking.
A friend of mine was in the girls' bathroom when a man had walked out of the women's stall in the women's bathroom, and he had been in there jacking off. And when she called him out on it, he said don't tell on him because he had just got arrested yesterday for sexual harassment or something to do sexually. This man was wanted in Springfield or St. Louis. He had his picture on a billboard because he had raped a 16-year-old girl and got her pregnant.
A lawsuit filed in August lays out similar accusations.
A former Rivian employee tells me that catcalling and sexual harassment was a near daily occurrence for her and other women at the electric vehicle manufacturer in Normal.
Rivian, with a market cap of $15.41 billion, is the 3rd most valuable car company in the world. Like Amazon, Rivian has taken a callous approach to worker relations.
This one little girl, she confided in me. She told me that this guy, James, had harassed her, like sexually, touched her ass and everything. I mean, full on, was making like crude comments to her. Well, she had come to the end of the line where me and most of my friends were, and the guy that had harassed her before walked up and physically pressed his body into her body. There was 6 or more people that saw this go down, him assault her like that. We all made statements on it. They were all erased. He still works there. And when we try to speak up about it, it's like, what do you want us to do? Like, we can only do so much. It's out of our hands. It's a third-party company that's looking into it. And then they tell us to not talk about it. Tell us to be quiet. Don't talk about it.
The issues at Rivian are widespread and impact everybody. Injuries, accidents, and negligence are pervasive, many workers say. Much of April's time at Rivian was spent dealing with injuries suffered on the job, and the company's ongoing efforts to avoid responsibility. The problems started in August, when she was hurt using the torque gun to screw in bolts.
I was the only one feeding the line that day, and I was going pretty hard at it, because we needed to pump so many units out. I felt a slight pull in my arm. I really didn't think twice about it. I went home, woke up the next day, and I couldn't feel these 4 fingers, and I was having muscle spasms in my arm.
April's shift leader told her to go back to work that day, so she did, only for the pain to spread to her back by the next morning.
I was told by my group lead, he said, if you have no feeling in your fingers and your back is numb, I don't want you here. I don't want you on the line. And I said, my doctor said I needed to see Medore, and he told me that Medore wouldn't see me for personal reasons.
Medore is the 3rd-party on-site medical care provider that many big factories and warehouses use. April missed 3 days of work, and when Rivian tried to fire her, she had to get an attorney. The company's health clinic then blacklisted her.
They said because I have litigation that they are not to pretty much touch me. Finally, I think because I was crying so much, she was like, well, I can rub some biofreeze on you or give you an ice pack.
April wound up having 3 torn muscles in her shoulder and arm, but it was her lungs, already weakened by prior illnesses, that suffered most.
My daughter had actually called me. I was working the line, and she said, Mom, are you okay? And I asked, why do you ask? And she said, because we heard that there was a fire at Rivian in the battery. And I said, well, that's news to me because I've just been working. They don't tell us anything over here. You see ambulances there all the time. You see fire trucks there all the time. You never know what it's for. The fire started in Battery. We were told we couldn't leave. We could hear the alarms going off, telling everybody to evacuate, but they had the doors blocked. They put somebody in front of the doors so we couldn't leave. Our manager came around and he said, it's nothing to worry about. It seemed pretty serious to me. It seemed pretty serious to a couple of my colleagues. We said, you know, you do realize you have mothers and daughters and fathers in here, right? And we know how fast the fire can spread, so I mean, we were all really concerned. Basically, he didn't care. He didn't care at all. All he cared about was us getting back to the line and pushing out those motors.
A manager finally led them out to the cafeteria, but they were ordered back to their area 20 minutes later. The flames and smoke plumed out, burning chemicals that overwhelmed her. A friend called 911.
They dispatched an ambulance out there. I really couldn't tell you too much after that. I remember feeling really sick, real short of breath, and then kind of coming to in the hospital, in the waiting room.
Things only got worse when April returned to work.
One of the group leads walked over to me because I was sitting down and I had my oxygen on my face, and he said, do you have a note to me sitting down? I was so dumbfounded by the question that I was like, I mean, I can get a note. Do I really need a note? I have oxygen on my face. You guys saw the note that said I require oxygen at this time. I stand up, I'm gonna use more oxygen.
Because Rivian no longer provides time off for people with COVID, April was infected around Christmas time. She took a leave of absence to protect her job, and then separately to mourn a grandparent. She returned a few weeks later to taunting and sexual harassment. At that point, she walked out.
My group lead had slacked me and asked me where I was. I texted him back the next day and I said, I'm trying to resign because I don't feel comfortable and I don't feel safe in that place. And it's taking a toll on me physically and mentally and emotionally. And I can't, in good faith in my heart, keep going in there and listening to these people's stories and not being able to do anything for them. I was terminated before I could resign. So they took my bereavement. I was supposed to get a check today. They took my bereavement. They took my UTO. They took everything that I have to live off of until I find a job, which is going to be hard because I have issues with work comp. It just seems like every road leads to a dead end. I've overcome a lot of obstacles in my life. You know, I'm 42 years old. I mean, I've overcome a lot. But I've never had a place break me before. And walking in there on Wednesday, it broke me. I don't even know how else to explain it.